non-recourse financing, whether that's in your retirement account or not, it is another layer of protection because there's no recourse against the borrower. And in a retirement account, it's required to have non-recourse financing because just normal conventional banks don't lend to retirement accounts. So one additional layer of security was a part of the decision-making process for you, Lee. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole thing. Because it's a retirement account, you have to use non-recourse loan because you don't want to be able to, have somebody come back and get that. So it's really is the responsible way of handling your money, protecting your assets. And for each individual house, like if something were to happen, God forbid, to somebody who's living in a house that has a non-recourse loan, or you default, you can't make the payments on it for some reason, they can only come back and just get that one house. So you're not losing your total assets. And so if you were in a conventional, mortgage, the rate's low over 3%. I think our rate was at 7.8% or 7.6%. We worked out. It's a 20-year loan. I said we only had to put down 40%. So we got $62,000. We borrowed $93,000. I thought I was making out like a bandit. My return on investment is great, but I'm being responsible actually with using a non-recourse loan. So it worked out well for us.
I know so many folks. The number one concern when you're investing in rental properties is positive cash flow, right? And so many folks who listen to us talk about non-recourse financing, the first question is, with a loan that has a 7.5% interest rate and a 20-year amortization, which is lower than what a normal 30-year amortization is, can you still have positive cash flow? And the answer is yes. And that's one of the reasons that we're a big proponent of non-recourse financing in the right situation for a client. It's because, your cash flows are going to be lower than what you would get if you were buying outside of the retirement account. But you also think about what the purpose of that retirement account investing is. If you're investing in your retirement account, you're not going to use that positive cash flow today, right? You're not going to use it until you start making withdrawals at age 59 and a half, typically. And so while your loan actually gets paid off quicker in a non-recourse loan environment in your retirement account, your cash flows are a lot lower. It's cash flow positive, but it's not a lot, right? And it works really well if your strategy is to build up a number of assets in your retirement account, get those things paid off so that when you get to 59 and a half, you might have 6 assets that are fully paid off rather than 4 assets that are fully paid off. And you were able to basically maximize those cash flow streams at a time in the future. It's that deferred gratification is a big part of why non-recourse financing works, even though some people have sticker shock on the interest rate. And the interest rate is just that high because it's a completely different ballgame than conventional financing. It has to be that way because big banks don't lend financing on retirement account purchases. So it's a little bit of theory about why it makes sense to do that.
And Greg, the way we were working it was the reason why we paid cash for the first one was so that we had money to put down on the second property, right? So you're right. The positive cash flow for all of the properties ends up being about $200 for the ones that we have the non-recourse loan for. But if you take those $200 for all of those, right, the rest of the money's paying the mortgage. The other $200 after expenses and everything, the other $200 that we have left is all going toward that one property that I want to pay down. And then once I pay that down, I think the time frame is 5 years using the 3X, whatever the model is, right? You pay it down in 5 years. So I'm not, even though it's a 20-year mortgage, it's still non-recourse. I'm still able to take advantage of paying it down early with no penalty. And then once the second one's paid for, the third one gets paid for in 3 years, right? So in a total of 8 years time frame, I have, most of the houses paid for, and that's if I only keep the 5, which is not the plan, So and not taking into account rent going up, So all those things, my expense is always going to be the same, my 10%, right? And so I like the business model. I like where it's going. I'm not depending on taking the money now, which is why I've gotten into that, right? I'm still youngish, not oldish. I'm youngish. And so I can afford to take a couple of years, right? I think the business model for my portfolio was, the guy said, you're going to work, you're in IT, you can work until you're 70, right? You know, I'm always going, I'm quitting next year. You know?